Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. For those who don't know me, my name is Brian Lubimbra. I'm part of Black Soul team, and we do organize these events, the Tech Talks, where our aim is to bridge the gap that between different teams, where we work in our different environments. So today, as you've seen, our topic is lost in translations from requirements to reality. So usually you find there is a product and somehow it's implemented differently from how it came, or its vision is different from the outcome. So tonight we're going to find out what causes that. So are you all excited to find out? So I think everyone has lived in those moments where you find there is a gap between especially engineers and product owners, and tonight we're going to find that. So we have our amazing panel today, and I believe they are the best experienced people to have tonight that are going to take us through that journey. So without wasting much of our time, I would like to welcome our moderator today, Gaila. Please come forward and introduce to us the panelists.
How are you guys? How are you feeling? I know it's in the middle of the week to VM Kazi, so here, or here? Okay, all right, so as Brian just said, my name is Gaila Jessie Rurindira Dukunda, and I'm from Bank of Kigali. I don't work in tech. I don't do tech. I am a learning and development analyst, or HR, as most people know. And it's my honor today to moderate or host this panel. And my job right now is to introduce the panelists. I think it's best if people introduce themselves, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try. All right. So we're going to start with someone who's not just a software engineer, but he is also a visionary building the foundation of cloud infrastructure that will power the future of African tech. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jean-Luc. Take a seat anywhere you like. Jean-Luc was part of the inaugural cohort of the Rwanda Coding Academy, and he's now pursuing a software engineering degree at Rwanda at ALU, and he is the co-founder and CEO of Stretch Cloud. Am I saying it right? There's a lot of T's, so I don't know. All right, welcome, Jean-Luc. It's a pleasure to have you. All right, next, we have one of our own, and she is not just a product builder, she leads teams that build the products, and she is a very key individual in building the infrastructure of fintech in Rwanda. Please welcome Chanel. Come. Chanel started as a quality analyst, and she's currently the product lead at Bank of Kigali. And last but not least, I would like to welcome Ghost, who has done multiple things in product and is currently a product manager at RSSB. Please welcome Landelin. Landelin, please, yes. Welcome, Landelin. He has also served in empowering the next generation as a teacher, as a lecturer assistant at CMU, and he is an alumni there in specializing in AI. Welcome, Landelin. Right, so yes, you can say hi to each other, and I believe my introduction might have been very. So I will let you guys introduce yourself a little bit more.
Good evening. like she mentioned, my name is Chanel. I'm a product lead at Bank of Kigali. I was whispering to her that she did a better job of introducing, at least myself. She said things I'm like, oh wow, thank you. So yeah, I don't think there is much I'm gonna add from what she said. So yeah, thanks.
Check. Okay. Thank you very much. As she just said, Gaila did a great job introducing us. I'm Landela, and everything she mentioned is right, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I also think Gaila did a great job. Everyone's saying Gaila did a great job in introducing us. As you said, my name is Sauvé Jean-Luc, and I am the CEO of a company called Stretch Cloud, which is a cloud computing company right now operating and serving companies in Rwanda. I guess that's pretty much everything you'll need to know. Thank you.
I thank you very much to our panelists, and we would like to start by thanking you guys for being here, for taking the time to come learn with us. This is a learning space, and Brian has did much of the introduction on what the topic is today. We are going to discuss with experts here how things get lost in the process of the project begins, and here are the results. All right? Okay, so to start, I would like to ask Jean-Luc a simple question. You've been an engineer, and now you are still an engineer, but you're also a CEO, which means you now sit at both sides of this pendulum or something like that. So I would like you to tell us what do you think is the communication issue with those two sides of the project side? So the business as a CEO and the software engineering, so the code behind the project that the business is requiring. What is the hardest part in communication when it comes to that?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good and nice question, which is relating to usually when we are having product development, there are two sides, as you're mentioning, the product side, and most of the times we refer to the other side, the engineering team, because they're working directly on the development of the product. But on the product side, they're coming up with actually most of the times the requirements, as you say, or what we would say on top level, what a product should be serving, or the problem the product that is being developed should be solving. So one funny or fun fact is that when it comes to Stretch Cloud, we consider ourselves as an engineering team serving engineers. So we don't actually have what most of the people call product owners. So the product owner is usually in charge, is the person in charge of the product. So we actually came up with a sort of like creative strategy where we have to make sure that each and every single person in the team is a product owner, meaning they own the product. They're not restricted from what they're doing. Every single time when they're working on something, they have to look in a lot of lenses from what they're doing is going to impact, going to have as an impact to the user, the experience is going to give, but also think about what other people are doing and how everything is going to sync together. So I believe that the very big issue, whether it comes to us with that strategy or it comes to other teams who are actually have that strategy of having a product owner differentiated from the engineering team, is not being in sync. The engineers only looking on what they're doing and ending up there and not looking in a broad perspective of what they're doing is actually in practice giving us a real value or impact, and on the other side of the product, not considering the work that is going to be required and the resources that is going to take for what they're demanding to be done. So I think we are lucky to have that team mixed up as one, as the engineers and as product owners. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think Jean-Luc just told us how he's actually building the solution to what we're discussing here in the way he structures his teams, and that is something very wonderful to see. So Landela, I'm going to ask you, from your experience, you've worked with government, with the private sector, you've even taught some of it. So I want to know which environment in all the environments you sat at has the most problem, and what would you say is like the underlying cause? Is it process? Is it, what would you say there?
Thank you very much. I'd say everyone who has worked with both private and public institutions, they would much agree with me. It's the government institutions. And the reason is the bureaucracy there is too much. So for an engineering team or a product team to succeed, I believe there should be quick development, quick testing. Everything should be quick so that we don't miss anything during the development. So what happens in public institutions most of the time is due to the bureaucracy, the processes, things to sign, whatever going on, it takes long, and during the process, a lot of things get lost in the process. So that's one of the gaps that happens over there.
Thank you very much. All right, so Chanel, you are a quality analyst. You've climbed or sat at different levels in the product life cycle. And now you sit at the top, if I can say that. And you've actually been at a point where you were like, does this thing that the engineers are giving me meet what we need for the client and everything? And now you are advising the business on how they should maybe interact with engineering and all that. What would you say that there as a problem generally when it comes to how vision is cascaded down to the engineers?
That is a very good question. What would I say is the problem of how the vision? I think the problem is not how it is communicated or the process itself. I think it's shared understanding of the problem. So for instance, everybody has the same, everyone has the same, everyone from business to engineers to everyone in the middle, they all want to achieve. The solution is the same. They want all to achieve something. But the problem is, do we all have the shared understanding of what problem we're trying to solve? So from whoever gives the vision, they might think this is the problem that we want to solve. And then when it comes down to maybe let's say product owner, they will also say, yes, we want to solve a problem, but what is the problem? So how the problem is defined from top to bottom, or from, okay, maybe bottom is not the right word, but from the person who defines the vision to the person who actually implements. That is where the issue is. So I wouldn't say that it's communication, it's shared understanding of the problem. If we all understand the problem that we are trying to solve, then there's not much even about communication. Then everybody will know what to do. But the problem is, maybe, I'll give you an example. Maybe one wants to solve a security-related issue. Someone else is trying to solve customer experience issue. We all think that we want to solve the same problem, but internally or in our minds, we don't really have the same shared understanding of the problem at the core. So that's what I would say.
Thank you very much, Annette. All right, so I'm going to take it back to Landela. So from your work at RSSB, when you start a project, there is clear vision, this is like the end product that the business wants. And maybe they set a timeline. They're like, this is very simple, it's just an add-on, please do this by this time. And then somehow in the delivery, something has gotten lost. So what usually happens when you face something where the business is asking something that's a little bit unrealistic or inconsiderate of your work? How is that usually handled in your day-to-day work?
Thank you very much. I'd like to start with correcting you. I don't usually start a project knowing what the solution will look like. I start knowing the problem you're going to solve. So the end product, it changes over time. And what usually happens when interacting with business, because these are our main stakeholders over there. Our main stakeholders are the business. They are the one who communicate the problem they're facing, and then we develop solutions. So the main issue comes when, as you said, they want something, a feature, something specific. You want a chatbot, for instance. Starting from what they're saying, the way they're communicating it, they know it somewhere. They give even links of someone who's doing it. It's straightforward, should solve a problem. And they give you, let's say, 2 sprints. You should be ready to deliver this in 2 sprints. So what usually happens during the initial conversations, it's better to involve them from the start, draw the map, show them the problem, show them the roadmap that you already have, the value this is bringing, the value of everything else you have is bringing, and then show them priorities according to value. And then another thing is, when sharing timelines, I don't like lying to stakeholders, as I'd say. So I do my best to be honest, clear about the timelines, and make sure we deliver. And to keep them in the loop as the development goes, our business stakeholders are usually involved in our daily stand-ups, in our reviews, to make sure that they know we are working on their solution. If someone is facing a blocker during a stand-up, they are there, they see that there's a blocker. So at the end of the sprint, they won't be asking what happened, because they were involved in the whole process. If someone is sharing the way they're implementing their logic, and then they are available, the business people are available, they can share as well that you've made something. This is not what we want, this is what we want, because this helps us do this. So involving them in the whole process, the engineering is involved, the product team is involved. You can even get a couple other engineers, for instance, to share their ideas. Someone who has worked on the product in the past, just that everyone is involved to make sure that the end product incorporates ideas from everyone, and no one is frustrated that something took long or something delayed because they're involved in the whole process. So they have a clear vision of what's going on. So I'd say, in few words, I avoid working in silos.
All right, thank you very much, Nandela. So I want one answer, right? Where do you think the gap is? Is it communication? Is it process? Is it maybe knowledge? With one word, each of you, and then you'll defend your answers.
I would say it's always communication, and the way the channels of the communication strategy are built, because as I said previously, if the team is in sync first on the problem that is being solved and what they actually want to achieve in all corners. He's been speaking about timelines. If there is a stakeholder, we need to achieve this in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks. And then there is also the side of the engineering team knowing these are the resources we have, this is how much we can commit to it. If before any action or anything actionable has to be taken, the communication is clear. It goes from the engineering team knowing that what they know they can achieve, they've already communicated, and the product owner being in the middle or being the middleman between the stakeholders and the engineering team, taking it to the stakeholders, and the stakeholders knowing as well that these are the realistic expectations, and keeping that in the loop so that if anything changes, because in real life not everything goes as planned, the communication stays alive and continues to go as it should be. So I think if communication is done well, most of the issues would be non-existent.
I'd go with the answer Jean-Luc Sauvé just gave. I think the key part is communication. When communication is clear, no one gets frustrated in the first place. Nothing gets lost. Our topic today is requirements getting lost in translation. When the communication is clear, I believe at least you should capture 99.9% of the requirements. So I'd say the main issue is communication.
Maybe I will differ a bit. I would say, yeah, partly what they said, communication, process, yes. But again, I'll stick to the shared understanding, because communication, what is communication? We can define communication. You can actually say, I have communicated. Maybe you have written down the requirements. Maybe you have had grooming sessions. Maybe you have had alignment sessions. This is something that happens a lot. But again, yes, you have communicated. Yes, the process that, the software development life cycle, we have followed all these processes, but do we, even in the communication that we did, do we have the same shared understanding of what we're trying to solve or where we're going? So I'll stick to shared understanding for me.
Thank you very much, Chanel. All right, so I'm going to have us do a little immersive exercise. All right, so this is AI generated, right? Okay, so do we all know M-Pesa in terms of the interface? All right, let's use the Momo app. I think they're a lot similar. They're all banking, mobile money thing. Okay, all right. So if but we know Spotify, right? Yes. So Sove, you are a CEO, right? I want you to look at this not as a CEO, but as an engineer.
CEO of Spotify?
No,
Okay.
no. You are a CEO, like you are a CEO. So I want you to look at this not as a CEO, but as an engineer, right? Someone who's done the code. If someone asks you to build something that's at the core of maybe Bank of Kigali's mobile app meets Spotify, what does that mean? As an engineer.
Kigali's mobile app
Meets Spotify.
needs Spotify.
Yes.
So it's sort of like people in Bank of Kigali are going to be listening to Spotify for free or something?
No, it's a product it's a bank product, but it has to be the combination of that mobile app and Spotify in terms of experience. What does that look like in terms of a code?
Well, that's an interesting question because we want to revive the BK mobile app and turn the experience that the users are getting to the similar experience that people in Spotify are getting. So as I will take you as a stakeholder with that need who wants to achieve exactly what you're talking about. So the very first step, as someone who actually wants to go down and do something of value, I think we'll first of all dig deep into the need of having that Spotify experience. Because Spotify is serving a different audience than what the BK is serving. So I would guess the first step being the clarity in me understanding why do we need that experience in the first place. And if, let's say, for example, theoretically, hypothetically, we manage to come to a conclusion that BK users actually need that Spotify experience, I think it will now go down deep into knowing where actually the differences between what is Spotify doing on the app in terms of experience and the BK and what's on the BK app, actually to determine if we would rather do a whole revamp and revamp the whole thing, which I believe will take more resources, or if we would adopt some of the what we will call notable things that people using Spotify will be enjoying and actually embed it so that we can come up with a sort of like a hybrid mixed up experience, if I would say so. So if in terms of communication, as we said in the beginning, if all that is cleared up, I believe that will go now to the engineering side, starting with the design, the designer having to come up with the brand new designs of what's going to be made, and then the engineers implementing it. I'm not sure if I gave you a good answer, but
that's good enough. That's good enough. All right. So, London, I want you to look at that. So that's a brief that you received. What's missing? Like, what are like the top 3 things that are missing in that brief? You know, you're building an app for banking. The boss is like, I want it to be that. What's missing in that brief?
Why? Why do you want it to be like Spotify? Do you want to increase the number of users? Do you want to? Is there a plugin compared to Spotify? Do you want some key features like a report, for instance? why do you want it to look like Spotify? Maybe if you describe the problem, the why, you don't even need Spotify. You need Apple Music, something that looks like Apple Music, like, or Equity Bank. Sorry for the PK people.
That's all right. That's all right. All right. Okay, that's good. Chanel had something to say.
Yeah, I was very excited because for the colleagues who were here, every year when Spotify gives us the wrap, I love that. So if you ask me what I would do, because I think there's a lot of personalization with Spotify. They really learn the users. They know what's Chanel's mood. She was in love meet somewhere, and then she got depressed, and then she got too spiritual, and then she started listening. You see, like there's that sort of personalization. So if you ask me what I would do,
and you've built
what
the
I want,
BK app, so you know what that would look like.
What I would want for the BK app, looking at people, I would love that sort of personalization. Or we know our customer, because we all don't have the same behavior. Even with money, we all don't have the same behavior. Even with the spending, we don't spend the same. We don't even want to see the same things because we, as a bank, we serve different segments: young, old, people who have a lot of money, future rich people. So that sort of personalization, and yeah, Spotify is really doing that.
Yeah, thank you very much. So the purpose of this exercise, it did not land as I was expecting, but that's fine. The purpose of this exercise was to see how at different levels of an understanding of what somebody wants, it's very broad and very different, because Chanel gets what it means, a BK app that looks like Spotify, and she's looking at people, I'm sorry if I got you in trouble. So, and Nandela is like, why are we doing this? Chanel already gets the why. She doesn't even need me to tell her the why. And Jean-Luc has this 360 view of what this is going to look like, what the resource is going to take. And he has that why in him, but for him it's more of a technical, like, how are we going to build this? What is it going to take? All right. So the idea was we understand that there is multiple faces to a problem. So we don't be like, hey, these people are not communicating. We are not seeing things the same way. They don't understand our process. Because engineers can be like, hey, you want me to build this in 1 week? This is too little time and all that. All right. Okay, so next, I want us to look into the dynamics of how things get lost in translation, right? So, Jean-Luc, I'm gonna go back to you, right? So, a product owner is like, we're not using the stretch product ownership, we're using the traditional one. Right. You've told us to do things differently, and that's a good thing. We're very happy for that. Right? A product says that engineering is not asking many questions. They're taking us to our word. They're not being very communicative. And then when you ask the engineers, they're like, product does not give us enough context. And then you have been somehow on both sides, right? So how would you observe the problem is they have the same question, they're asking the same question, but they're not really getting to connect and actually collaborate. What would be your observation as someone who has been on both sides and now you're leading teams and helping them navigate that? So what would be your observation on how that can be solved?
Well, I believe having been on both sides, the issue there, in my opinion, would come back to motive, because there are two sides. It seems as if, according to your scenario, everyone on their side wants only to do what is in their responsibilities, and they're expecting others to do their responsibilities, which means if they're not doing what they're supposed to do, it's not my problem, which takes into a perspective of I win if I do my responsibilities. So now the solution to that is a perspective shift of knowing that your win is not doing your responsibilities, your win is to deliver results, and whatever that takes. Now, when it comes to the whole teams delivering results, I guess the very big solid foundation would be now the motive, which is why it's always, I believe, necessary to have people in the team who actually believes in the why of what is being developed, and over time actually believes that is something that is worth working on, and not someone who comes today and say, I have to do this, God help me, I finish them and then I go back home. We instead, if possible, have developed that culture and put in efforts to have those type of people who are actually going to be invested in what you're doing, and that sort of like that amount of commitment or investment in it is what is going to make the engineering team ask questions, because the product owner is going to come up with, let's say, for example, user stories, but engineers are going to actually question and say, what if this goes like this, what if this goes like this? And in that particular time, the product owner is not going to be worrying about the engineering team not asking a lot of questions. The product owner alike, I believe the worst thing a company can do is a product owner who is not an owner, because that's even in the name of being a product owner. You have to be owning the whole thing. So if the team is coming up to a place where they feel like the product owner is not giving enough information, I think that is something that the product owner should be working on, because he has to make sure that every single aspect of the product development is well served, including the engineering team having to know almost everything that they need to know to get started. Yeah.
Thank you very much. All right, so from what Sylvia just answered, I'd like Chanel to tell us, what do you think is like the major friction point between the product owner and the engineers that's causing the this is my scope, your scope, and then creating this gap that we're trying to solve? What's the major friction point?
I would say that the moment product owners feel like their role is just to dump requirements to the engineers, or the engineers feel like our role is just to take the requirements and turn them into something, I feel like that's where the problem comes. I feel like even the requirement development from scratch, this should be this should be something that is done in collaboration, because when people are working in silos, or when one person has the responsibility to come up with the requirements, come up with all these understanding, but if you put everyone in the same room where they feel like this is not just a product owner's job, this is just where engineers feel like we are contributing from scratch to the problem solving, I think that's when it works best. But when requirements just come and say, implement this, obviously that's what he said, someone will do, they will develop the requirements as given, and when it goes live, they will tell you, this is the requirement, this is what we gave you. But when you develop together, when you come up with the requirements together, when they feel like this is not us just implementing Chanel or someone else's, sort of list, a to-do list. So I feel like the collaboration and not feeling like, and from my experience, especially when I was product owner, I think one of the best product that we have ever worked on, it's because I actually always felt like the engineers knew better than me. And to be honest, most of the times they knew better than me. I always sat with them in the room. They would tell me things. I would even go back, shamelessly ask again, what did you mean? What do you mean? How did you do this? Because sometimes these people have even done these things before. As a product owner, some of the engineers have implemented something like this somewhere. So it's best that they give you the ideas. They're not there just to implement. They also have experience. They understand. Sometimes they even understand what would actually solve the problem. So I think the friction becomes when one feels like, I'm just here to give you instruction, to tell you what to do. I know better. Instead, it should be, we should do this together, yeah.
Thank you very much, Chanel. So, Londela, I'm going to ask you something a little bit more problem-oriented. Can you tell us about a time in your work experience where you saw it, like, this is the gap, and try to steer away from there was a resolution? Tell us the extent of the gap, like analyze the gap without solving it.
All right, thank you very much. I used to work in a team where I worked with 2 different development squads, so working with different products, but I used to own both products. Team 1, there was a very good, very smart engineer who questioned everything I brought or everything he got from anyone. So they would challenge you. Why are we doing this? Why can't we doing this? Sometimes even push back. I'm not doing this. This is not solving the problem you've shared. I'd rather like we do this. Go take your time. Go back to business. Propose something else. But this won't work. I can deliver it because engineers are very smart. Whatever you give them, they'll deliver it. But if someone is smart enough or willing to take that extra step, get to the why, challenge someone, it helps. Team 2, very smart engineers. The company used to have very smart engineers. It actually does as well right now. And this second engineer, he just went from straight, as long as you give them the requirements, they go straight into development mode. 2 nights, he'll give you whatever you asked for. But in the end, when you bring the product for testing to the users, a lot of feedback, a lot of what ifs, pushbacks. And for Team 1, because of this pushing back, the challenging the ideas, finding better ideas together, usually we didn't get a lot of feedback to change things. For Team 2, the delivery was quick, yes, but the back and forth with QA, with actual users, was a lot. That's something I noticed. And I think that can give you an idea into the gap that you was talking about.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, I think that tells us more of what Chanel was saying, involving the engineers at the core. I believe that's what all of you have been saying from the beginning. Involving engineers at the core makes it easier to develop something that actually meets the reality of what was the expectation. And right, that's good. So as we continue, I would like to hear from you, Chanel. Londona just told us the gap when it comes to engineers and product. Now I want you to tell us the gap when it comes to product and leadership, or product and business. What is the scenario you've been at where they're like, these people don't get what I'm saying?
When it comes to leadership or business, I think it's priority. What gets prioritized? Mostly for business, because their KPI is mostly numbers, they will find something that looks good on the paper in terms of numbers. But when product team is supposed to sit between business and engineering, but also representing the customer. So as a product owner or someone in the product team, sometimes what you see as the priority is not what leadership sees as the priority. Maybe leadership is looking at P&L, or they're looking at, like I said, for us in the banking sector, they're looking at security, but who is thinking about the customer? What does the customer want? So I think the problem between leadership and business and product team and the rest, because when I say products, I feel like product and engineers, they go hand in hand. So it's always priority. What gets prioritized and why? And obviously, sometimes, most of the times, leadership wins. What they want is what gets prioritized. And then you launch, and then you find out. And unfortunately, even when you launch, when you were given directive, it still becomes your problem. Like, what have you done? You've spent a whole year. You have not solved any problem. Our customers are not happy. But it's because what was prioritized versus what was the customer need is 2 different things. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Annette. All right, so I want us to get out of the products, get out of the requirements, and talk about the people, the engineers, the product owners, the management, the people of it. So at what point does this go beyond what I want and what you want and becomes a people problem? And this chief or this manager who's on your neck, I need this, probably has pressure from the board. This engineer who's telling you this has probably, they've been trying to code and it's been failing. And they have that pressure that this code is bugging. So do we ever take time to consider that there is more to the problem than the communication, the process, and the back and forth of the who is asking what, and look at the people in it, the stress that they may be going through and all that? Anybody can answer.
I believe it's always a challenge of balance between two things. One being very, very results oriented, having a very strong bias towards results. But again, acknowledging that every single thing that you're achieving, it's a collective effort of the people. It's always said that if one wants to be a leader, they have to accept and to have that vow of loving the people that they're leading. It's also a saying that if you don't love people, if you don't love the people, stop leading them. So it's actually a balance between the two. You have, I would call, sort of like tough love for the people in terms of them being in the team, their productivity matters for the product and for the person as well. Because the more they learn to do the things as they're supposed to do, the more they are growing personally. So there are several times where people fall short of what they should be doing, where according to what just happened, you have a lot of ways to deal with that. There is, of course, as you said, that initiative to go and learn more about what a person personally is facing. That will be something that is preventing them to be productive. Let's say something bad happened to them and they're not, they will need some sort of like time off, or maybe they're struggling with what they're trying to do. They don't really understand. Is there any sort of help? So it comes down for the leader to be so close to the person that the person will open up and actually say what's happening. And now when you know what's happening, you come back to the side of being very biased to results. You have to be results oriented, because as a company, if you are serving customers, the customers, if they get bad experience, they won't know that it was someone who was having a bad day or a bad time in their lives. So you have to find a balance. That's where you have a lot of alternatives. I always say to people, I'm a strong believer to that for every problem, there is always a solution. And in reality, there is more than often, like more than two solutions to it. You might maybe look for a creative way to involve other people in the same, or you might look in the long term into engaging that person in a sort of like, I would say, training or personal growth, so that they move to that level where you want them to be. But there are scenarios where you actually realize that you've done a bad hire, and it comes down to the point of tough love, because if that person is going to let's say, for example, for a long period of time, take the team back, underperform, and there is nothing in your arsenal to help them at that time, I guess you're gonna look them on their face and say, "I love you and I'm firing you," because this is something that might help you along the way. You might not realize it now, but along the way, there are things after that particular event or decision that is going to help the individual, either in terms of them thinking about themselves, making the decisions that were hard to be influenced to do, or even finding a better place, because it's a possibility that they were in the wrong place. So it's always the balance of being very, very results oriented and making sure that as a leader, as a manager, you love the people.
Right. Yeah.
I want to add something. As you were speaking, I was thinking that, for me, I think, of course, what he said, but adding on, stakeholder management, I think, is one of the biggest quality or skill that someone from product team should have. Because different stakeholders manage things, even react to things differently. I would say that, for me, even the more you climb in the leadership ladder, you actually understand that, unfortunately, how people feel, actually it's how people feel or how people perceive something matters. So when you as a product owner or someone in the product, you have to have stakeholder management skill, because different stakeholders, you get buy-in if you go to, let's say, him, and you know how, basically what you present, you have to learn your stakeholders and know, if I go to stakeholder X, I know they like numbers. So whatever that I take from them, I'll first start showing them, numbers-wise, this is what it looks like. Or they like to bring things around security. And you tell them, for us to be able to, or if you know they are customer-oriented, so you have to learn stakeholder management. And also you have to understand that, especially as a leader, that just because you're the leader, it does not mean you have the best stakeholder management. Myself, I know that there are instances where I know different stakeholders, I cannot go to them myself. I know people in my team that get buy-in quickly than I do, depending on the stakeholder. So stakeholder management is a big skill for me.
Thank you. Londela, I would like you to talk to us, still on the people aspect of this, to talk to us about trust. Trust between the engineers and the product owners, managers, and all the way to leadership. How do we, is it there? How do we build it? Or how do we improve it?
Thank you very much. First of all, trust is very important, especially between engineers and their own product manager or product owner. It's very important. The rest, it's up to the product person to talk to the stakeholders, as she said, to the management, whatever. But the trust is very important. I believe trust is very important between engineering and the product person. And I'm lucky enough to work in a team where that trust is there, because engineers can lie. Sorry to the engineers here, but they can lie. They can lie, they can tell you, it's already available. Next time you call them, can we test? No, I'm not on my laptop right now. Give me 2 hours. It's past working hours, then let's do it tomorrow. They can lie. So if the trust is there, if the engineer is honest, it tells you, see, it's not ready. I had other things to work on. The thing is not ready. But our promise, 2 days will be available. If you trust them and you know in 2 days the feature will be available ready for testing, for instance, as a product person with your stakeholder management skills, you know what to tell to the business. And you know you're not lying to them. You know what to tell them. Give us 2 more days. There was a delay somewhere. But 2 days, I'll give you something. So how the trust is built is by not blaming each other, because at the end of the day, we are all there to build good products for BK, for Stretch, for HSP. That's our goal. That's what wakes us up in the morning. So we have a common goal, and that's the most important thing. And it's up to us to work towards that goal. And to do it is by working together as a team, trusting each other. You promise something, you deliver. If you have a blocker or something that's stopping you, share, and then the product owner will know how to go to the stakeholders and share what's happening and buy some time. But if you lie, and then the product owner goes to the stakeholders, they lie as well. The trust from stakeholder to the product team goes away, and it's very important, because the next time whatever you tell the stakeholders, they will not believe it, and unless you bring something, they will not believe anything you tell them. So trust is very important.
All right, so let me bring you back. You said you're lucky enough to work with a team that you trust, that you have trust relationship. But in experience, your very vast experience, what does the lack of trust in engineers create along that product chain, from engineers all the way to stakeholders?
I hinted about it at the end. The first thing you lose is trust from stakeholders. And it's very important. If you, for example, if your stakeholder is business, if you're developing something for them, they don't trust you, they will not believe in your product. That's the first thing. If you're lucky enough to deliver on time, they won't adapt quickly. Even if they adapt quickly, they see a small bag, they say, ni baba na. They see, if you break the trust between the business and the product team, everything goes away. So that's why it's very essential.
All right, thank you. So before, I'd like to open it up to the audience. But before we do that, I want to ask you all to answer personally to this question. forget you have amazing teams. You have built systems that solve what we're trying to understand. But forget that. Look at the overall status quo of this gap exists. What is one thing that if you could gushyiraho itegeko today, you'd put in place for engineering and product and business to interact? This is what you have to respond, and it would solve this gap. One thing.
Ownership. If I will be in a place where I will say, let this happen, let everyone in the team, from the engineer to the product owner, to the scrum master, to the stakeholders. At some point, you're even surprised to find that stakeholders, they're not even owning what they want to be, what has to be delivered. They, they're biased towards their own, let's say, for example, benefits, or what they're gonna come out of what's going to come out of it for them. But if everyone was to own what actually is to be delivered, it will change a lot of things, because with ownership comes with the people being invested in whatever is doing, comes with the people asking questions, comes with the people having those brainstorming sessions of how can we make this better and how can we be a better engineering team as time goes by. So I would say each and every person concerned and involved, be an owner, have ownership.
I'd like to add on what he just said. I was going to say ownership, but I used two words. Own the problem. Everyone on the delivery of the solution should first of all own the problem. Because that's where when you get to a solution, if the engineer starts an implementation, mid-implementation, if they own the problem, you realize something that you missed and get back to you, I think we missed this. What do you think? So this brings quality up even more if everyone's on the development team, even the stakeholders, they own the problem that you want to solve.
Absolutely everything they said, maybe just a different wording. I would say end user or customer obsessed. If we all care about the end user or the final customer in my perspective, because I work at the bank, but end user for someone maybe who's just not maybe just a customer, but end user. But if we are all obsessed with, or obsession in a good way, of course, I'm not saying stalking, but if we're all obsessed with how the user will interact or how the experience of the end user, everyone from business to product to engineering, really, really deeply caring about what the experience of the end user will be, then I think this will solve this.
Right, thank you very much. All right, so I would like to open up to you guys. Questions for the panelists, experiences you'd like to share with us. Yes, Eve?
Hello, it's not a quick question, just a question for everyone. It's basically, you all came up from different experiences being on a specific team, and now you are at a crossroad of teams and you manage those crossroads together. What do you feel like the conversation was more outward, but what do you feel like you built from the inwards on yourself in the team that you were in to qualify to be in a position where you're at the crossroads, and how do you sustain yourself in that responsibility and say, my job is well done, the stakeholder is satisfied, the team is satisfied, but on more of a personal level? And just like if you're telling it to someone like in one of those roles that you were in previously, they were so specific, who wants to cross to the path of being all around everything. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'd say specifically coming from an engineering background, when I got into product, I think something that helped me in the first place is I understood engineers and how they work. We would even sometimes brainstorm on the solution, so they trusted me somehow. But what I learned during the role now that I'm into it is that, and I've improved, is my stakeholder management skills and communication. So usually engineers, they don't like to communicate. They just close down, usually like to work from home, deliver the code, and go on with their day. So as you step out, as you go into product, you care less more about the code. There are people in charge of that. You just should care about the problem, the people who faces the problem, and to do that you need good stakeholder management skills, as Chanel mentioned, and good communication skills. And I think something that keeps me going is so when you're at product, you start with something that no one knows. You know the problem, and starting from there, and you go 2 years, 1 year and a half, you deliver something, it goes live, 14 million Rwandan people are using it, good feedback online, good feedback everywhere. I think that's what keeps you pushing to go into the next big thing.
Yeah, maybe what he said, but like she mentioned when she introduced, I happened to be in different roles. She mentioned that I started as a QA, as it was actually an internship. QA, then business analyst, then associate product owner, then product lead. So maybe asking me how I crossed to where I am. At first, to be honest, I didn't wake up and think I was going to be product lead. That role didn't even exist at the time. But also, I didn't say I wanted to be product owner. It's something that I grew into. But what was the thing that made me get there? I think at first, like he mentioned, the impact. Really, at first, when you really, at the core, if you really feel like I want to make impact, I want to make sure that whatever I'm doing today is going to give impact somewhere. And like you mentioned, your first thing, like your first product, when you see how the impact it has made in the public or in the users, even if he's mentioned 10,000, but even if it's 20 users, but the feedback you get, that pushes you to even want to solve more problem. And then the next thing you know, you kept growing. But there's also something that I want to add. I was also, like she said, we should speak personally. I was also fortunate to work in an organization that actually sees the work that you're doing and actually reward you for it. They don't just let you, so you're solving problem or you're making impact, okay, well done, and then that's it. They actually give you an opportunity to even contribute more. If you were contributing at maybe just collecting, as a QA actually, when I started as a QA, I wasn't even doing actual QA. I was more of writing test scripts. I wasn't really doing much of a QA because I didn't even have that much experience. But if you're writing test scripts and they say, okay, she's doing well, requirements, business analyst, okay. And then you get to the point where you become a product owner, you own a product, it goes live, they see impact. Instead of maybe the organization you're working on saying, oh, well done, we have launched something, they actually reward you and say, okay, if she led this and we are seeing impact, maybe we should give her or him even an opportunity to even go to the point where they can actually tell us the vision, the strategy. Because to the maybe product leads, you don't deal much maybe with the requirements and stuff. Maybe you are mostly asked about the strategy, the vision, where do you see us going, and vice versa. So two things, having, the zeal to want to make impact, but also being in an organization or a space where actually people see your work and actually give you opportunities to even contribute more. Yeah.
So on my side, again, if I would summarize your two questions, it would be like, how did you find yourself in that position, and what keeps you in it? What keeps you in that position? I believe one thing that helped me a lot and that keeps helping me, I know most of us actually believe that we need to work hard, right? It's like pay right now and, like rest later. You have to pay a price, right, for the moment, because in the future things are gonna be easy. Do hard things right now because it's gonna bring a sort of like easier future to you. But when it comes to how I understand it, I always believe that it's good to see it in a way that I am actually trying to do hard things so that it's going to give me the ability to do harder things. Because in doing hard things, I believe for like 98% of the people, most of the things that are worthwhile that we might believe or want to achieve are somewhere like, they are all the way up there. So it takes a high road to reach there. So for me, coming from the background of course, I was I studied at Rwanda Coding Academy, software engineering, and continued there at the African Leadership University. And I started with that work of developing software. But I've always wanted from the heart, because trust me, it is hard. But from there, how is it going to enable me to do harder? I believe I started with, I interned at Exos, and then I continued as a software developer at RTB. But when I went to work for Mwarimu Sacco, it's a local bank for teachers, I actually, by my own initiative, took even more roles than I was assigned to. I had to be a full stack software developer, but I also took on to be the development team lead. And at some point, I think the management was so happy to see me wanting more responsibilities. So they were like, okay, take the QA, take the product ownership as well. And I was very willing to take them because I believed that in doing that hard part is going to enable me to do harder. And after that, I believe I've also worked in at IST Africa as a full stack software engineer. I was like the very first hire, by the way, like for the 6 months. Even there, I was even taking even more responsibilities. And I would say I was very, very lucky now to meet 4 of my colleagues when we were at the African Leadership University. And the idea was that across what experience we've had and a lot of things that we've done, if we would put efforts together, we would actually create a sort of like high potential where we can do even something that is even more impactful than what we've ever done since we started working and what we could think of, which I believe it was even engraved in the very name of the company, which is Stretch. And that is the very same thing that keeps me at it. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Well, I will start, and for the sake of marketing, we've never deployed any flopped version of our products. But of course, there's no software that is bug free. Most of the times, we have things that clients would complain on. And when it comes to the part of blaming, of course, it's my opinion and it's my belief. I believe that everything rises and falls on leadership. Like, it's leadership that takes everything, the direction of it. Of course, there is a huge part that the team is doing, but if the leadership is doing bad, the things are going to go in a bad way. So the very first blame, I think, should be on the leader who is leading. I think most of the times people come up with excuses and say, for example, it is this person who was not, let's say, for example, I would say has attention to detail, and this is where it came from. But it's your problem as a leader to allow that person who doesn't have attention to detail to be in your team, right? Or maybe, let's say, for example, it's an external party where you have not evaluated well, for example, that there is a scenario that this might happen, and then all of a sudden it happens. Of course, in life we fail, but I think it's always an opportunity presented to you to learn. Instead of going to blame others, you take it as a lesson, as a leader, that you're going to take from there and do your best for that thing not to happen again, and then take that lesson across the whole team. I'm not sure if I've answered well your question, but I think from my side, that is the answer.
Okay. Yes, we have launched things that have flopped, and there's no shame in that. I actually don't think there's anything wrong with, it's actually, I actually feel like we should actually give, especially engineers, the freedom to experiment. Maybe, of course, for us, because we're a bank, and we aim to give our customers world-class experience. That's what maybe pilot is for, or testing with a small group of people. But where that happened, what was the reason? The reason that we actually decided, no, this is not ready for the public, it was mostly experience. We noticed that what we have as a live feature or a live product is not meeting the expectation of the user. It will not meet the expectation of the users, because even us, we are users, internal users. So if we can already see, bad experience here and there, even with a few customers, then that's why you decide, this is not what we intended to do. But I believe that it's actually very okay. But maybe what, as an organization or institution, what you should do, you should always aim to maybe not roll out to a bigger public, maybe just experiment with a few people. But yeah, it gives you room, like I mentioned, it gives you room to learn and know what to do better. But we should also not have this mindset where we're like, you must deliver something perfect. Because then people will feel like, even when something is not perfect, they will feel forced to keep it the market just to be defensive. But when you give people the flexibility to feel like you can experiment, and when things go wrong, it will be a lesson learned. Yeah. So it has happened, and it was mostly bad experience that made us say, no, let's take it back. Yeah.
So then we blame the analysts, right?
I don't want to say we blame one person. Okay, from where it happened before, maybe it could be analysts today, it could be someone else, but from the experience, at least at BK, it was the pressure to deliver, to have something on the market. Why if we must have this? Because maybe X bank or X financial institution, they have this, we must also have this. So that pressure to have something because others are having it or because you want to be the first on the market can actually lead. But it could also be the analyst. It could be, I don't want to fix it on one person or one specific group of people. It could be anyone. It could be the pressure, it could be the analyst, it could be poor research. Maybe you didn't do research before. Is this even needed on the market? By the way, sometimes we even give people what they don't need in the moment. So yeah, but again, like I said, also let me say analysts, it's okay. But still analysts should feel like it's okay. You have experimented, you can experiment more. Yeah.
One more question?
Thank you. Okay, I will. My name is Innocent. My first question will go to Jean-Luc. From what I understood, is like in your company, the solution was to kind of get rid of the product team, right? So your solution was okay, all the engineer and everything. We don't need too much of the product as another, let's say, layer above the engineers. Did that solution solve all the problem we're talking about here? That's my first question. And if it didn't solve it, how do you deal with those challenges? Because I believe you still deal with the customers. I mean, you still have stakeholders you're dealing with, right? So another question, maybe we'll go to Chanel and London, right? So, from what I've understood is there's a really, I don't know if there is a possibility from you, like let's say product owners, do you get to push back sometimes when there is that need? Because, okay, let's say from experience, like requirements comes and we are not going to push them, we will still implement them. But sometimes they're not really needed. Like, okay, let's say I have like 3 features that are pending there from prod, they've never been deployed. But when they came, they were very urgent, like now, we need them tomorrow. So how do you prioritize the priority? How do you, like, you who are facing the business side, how do you deal with those priorities? How do you assure they're even priorities before even they come to us like engineers, so that we implement something that we know they're really needed and they're going to be deployed, instead of, we focus on this solution and it's never been, deployed or shipped to the stakeholders. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I will start, and to remind the audience, you asked, I said that in Stretch Cloud, we do not have a product owner. And you are wondering, with that approach, did it solve all of the problems that are being stated here? And if not, how are we dealing with those problems that are not solved? And you said that you know that we have stakeholders and we have customers. And the answer, I think, lies in the nature of the company and in the nature of the product. Because if we're speaking, let's say, for example, most of other big companies, a product comes with an idea coming from, let's say, a non-technical background, and the users are mostly non-technical as well. So that factor itself creates another layer of the product that we rarely have, because our product as a cloud computing company is mostly for engineers and technical people, right? So which actually sort of like removes some of the layers. But again, in the nature of it being a startup gives us an advantage in the way we operate, because we have always been saying ownership. But in reality, if someone is just joining, let's say, for example, a corporate or a company, most of the times their eyes is, I want to have this money, build my house, right? If necessary, build my own family. A lot of thoughts are not really on what is being done. And that, in essence, makes it harder to bring on that ownership. And I believe that's why a lot of methodologies, software development methodologies were brought up, like the Agile Scrum methodology, which we actually use because we have sprint plannings, we have sprint reviews, we have retrospectives, we even have the daily Scrum, which is the daily stand-up, but we don't have the Scrum Master and the product owner, simply for that case of making sure that everyone is an owner. Preventing that scenario where everyone will be feeling like there is someone in charge, they will just tell me what to do. So we make sure that each and everyone in the team is an owner by value, but of course it's a challenge, of course, when it comes to how the business operates, because you also have to take it away from it being a value and theoretical and making it practical. For example, for startups, there exist options like stock options, where someone is practically even owning the company, which increases the fact of that person contributing to the company, knowing that if you're doing the things the wrong way, he himself is losing in the process. So I believe what we've introduced as that structure of not everyone being a product owner has solved a lot of these problems. And yes, we have stakeholders, yes, we have customers, and the moment they contact support, we make sure that the right person that it has to reach, it reaches to them. Some of the times that person even reaches out before someone says this is for you, because they own it and they see they are the right person who can do it. And it comes again with the contribution of ideas, which is something that makes the quality we develop, I believe, in my own opinion, more than 10 times of what we would have developed if we would have implemented the traditional way of people knowing they're just there to do what the product owner is going to give them, and it's the product owner in charge. Yeah. So I believe I answered your question well. Okay.
All right. About the second question, about pushback, how does a product owner push back on different requests from business or users or management? I think that's top 2 essential skills a product person should have, and it's not number 2, because if everything becomes a priority, it messes up with nothing is a priority. If everything is a priority, nothing is a priority. So you have to have the right metrics, first of all, to pick what should be a priority, what should be developed, and have another skill on how to communicate that you're not doing this because this. We're first going to start with this because this is the value it's bringing. If we get time, sometimes in the future we're done everything, we can look into other things, but we should start with this. I think that's a key skill every product owner should have, because if they don't, it messes up with the team. As you said, I think every product team or development team has a couple of features pending because no one requested the progress on them. But when the requests were coming, they were urgent. Calls, messages, emails, it's urgent, when am I having it? But once it's available, no one even remembers to request because they have shifted to something else. So it's a key skill to have, to know what to prioritize and be sort of a protection to the engineering. You make sure you give them something to focus on. That's a priority. And for the others, you push back, stall them until they forget. Sometimes they even forget about it. Yeah, but it's a very essential skill to have.
Maybe just to add on, because they have said most of it. Yeah, what he said is right. I don't want to repeat it. But there are two things that I want to highlight. Even apart from even requests coming, urgent, we need this like tomorrow. But then you develop something that never goes live. We even have instances where, yes, something came very urgent. We need this business case says this and that. It goes live, never used. That even happens beyond just having something that was never deployed. I think that is even worse, the latter. So yeah, in an ideal world, what they said is right. A product owner should be able to protect the engineering team from things that are not needed, because they should sit from the customer perspective and say, is this what the customer needs? Is this gonna solve their problem? But that's in an ideal world. But let's speak reality. In reality, that doesn't always happen. I also like that he touched something about corporate and startups. In startups, that's easier to do, or in small organization. But in a big corporate, there's a lot of moving parts. Yes, there's a product owner, but there's also a lot of, there's structure. So like I would say, yes, what they said, it's a good skill to have. Actually, as a product owner, you should say, I should always ask or even understand, why do we need to do this? And why is it priority, not that priority? And that is the perfect way of working. But unfortunately, it's not always the way. So what I would maybe add that they didn't say, you need to have balance. Again, comes back to, what does the customer need, but how do I also manage my stakeholders? Because you're not gonna say completely no, because these are also the same stakeholders who probably approve some of these things to go live. So a balance. However, in an ideal world, this is the perfect way to do things. But in a big corporate, it's not. Yeah, that's not how it goes. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. I just have one question. From your experience, maybe any of you can answer. Would you classify like the product role? Is it a tech role? Is it a business role? Or it's a political role?
Combination, right? Yes, it's, I think, na collabo, right? Because about the technical side, not that much, because different product managers, products come from different backgrounds, engineers, designers, business people, customer support. So not that much technical, but if you have the technical skills, it helps you in conversations with engineers. But politics, yes. And what was the second option? Business. Depends on the product you're working on. So for instance, if you're working for Irembo, for instance, everyone is going to use Irembo. So you don't need that much business advertisement, marketing KPIs, whatever, because at the end of the day, someone is going to pay their traffic fines, and they have to use Irembo. So it's more about, you focus more on how the solution will look like. Maybe make it fast, make it smooth, something like that. But on other products, like Stretch, for instance, they have a lot of competition. So you have to have some business savvy on how you challenge other cloud platforms. Yes.
And on my side, I think my point of view is the people on the product, of course, they at some point touch some sort of like specific sectors, let's say business, as you said, politics, and tech as well. But I think the part that the role they play in them are very, very small. They are rare to none, in my own view. But the product owner or the people in the product actually has to deal more with understanding the problem. Because if you're developing a problem that is going to work in the health sector, that product owner, I believe in my own opinion, should be someone who actually understands the pain points of the people working in the health sector. Because most of the other things can be picked up. Because if we say that it's more of a tech-related role, I think we'll be undermining the very hard part that tech people are doing, engineering, making all of those architecture and stuff, and the actual coding. If we will put it in the politics, I think we will be sort of like, stretching it as well, because there is a big side of politics as well that other people are playing. And the business, of course, is dealing with money, and most of the times, I guess the product owner might not even know what's, this quarter, what's going to be planned, what's the budget coming in. They're focusing on, this is the problem that we know we're trying to solve, and are we solving it the right way? So I think they come more from the problem side. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I also had another question. So they did mention one thing about the corporate world and the difference between itself and the startup world. We know that the startup world is a really fast-paced environment, and which heavily depends on velocity and rapid development. But then on the other hand, the corporate world is really focusing on security, and it really depends on the structural architecture of things. So if I point myself towards maybe, let's say, BK or RSSB, they do have some digital products that they ship. And so how do you manage the two opposite sides? How do you manage the two environment? Because coherently in their nature, they are conflicting. And that's one. If we dive deeper into that, specifically in the corporate world, there are many people involved in it. So we might mention the product team, media and marketing stuff, and then the technical side as well of it. But all those people do have different knowledge. They have different ways in which they apply their knowledge. They have different ways in which they operate, but they do not speak the same language. So how do you help everyone, everybody that is a member of those different teams to be coordinated and actually communicate in a coherent and efficient way, and drive them towards a united solution?
Yeah. I think actually in the corporate world, I actually think that's where, like he mentioned, the structure at his company is different from the structure at BK. And I think the reason why it has worked even best for them, it's because, again, it's not a corporate. So actually in a corporate, that's where actually product team is very important. Because like you said, marketing is even more, I think especially modern marketing can even try, they can speak the same language as the technical team. But we're talking about purely business people, like we have, especially in a bank. You have a 60-year-old or someone who has worked in the bank before, like in the 60s, when the bank maybe was opening for 2 hours, when they were writing something. And these people, most of them don't even like technology. So how do you bring all of them together? How do you make them speak the same language? You can't. all of them can't speak the same language. You also have to actually accept that. And that is where the product team is actually very important. Because this is someone who should completely understand that someone, let's say, I don't want to mention a department, but let's say someone who sits somewhere in business and they will never understand the language, let's say, of a product designer. They don't even understand what is UI, UX. But how do you make sure that they understand that whatever needs they need, whatever problem they want to solve, but the user journey is very important. Because for them, they're like, it's paying, it should be paying. But from a product designer perspective, it's not just paying. What's the navigation? How do they get there? What's the experience-wise? What do they see? What's the interface like? So they can't all speak the same language. And that's where actually the product team should be very strong. They should be able to completely understand this business, non-technical, who doesn't even want to hear those things, who think those are fancy roles you came up with just to fill the organization, to get them, show them that I understand, to now go and translate that into the language now that the product designer, for instance, understand. And they will be excited to build. So I think that's where product team is very important and very much needed. In a startup, I would actually also go with his approach, ownership for everyone. But in a big corporate, it's very important that the product team try to relate with everyone, not just sit. Because in instances where product team is biased more with the technical team, you will find that business will not be very happy. And in an instance where they relate more to business, the engineering team will not be very happy. And trust me, you don't want to upset engineers. Yeah, they're not very, So I think you have to, as a PO, you have to be very balanced, understand both sides, and be able to translate and speak their language both.
Yes. I like what Chanel just mentioned. She started with saying that you can't speak the same language, and that's true. So maybe something to add is, from my experience, you get them on board as you deliver your product. For instance, if at the start, when there was no BK app, for instance, if a withdrawal was taking on average 7 hours, so from commuting to the place, going on the line, each person at the bank has to attend to at least 150 people per day. But with the shipping of a digital product, you show them the value you've brought. Show them now, we took withdrawing from 7 hours. Let me actually say opening a bank account, because I recently opened an account using the BK app. And so I didn't have an account with BK, so I decided to create one. And I had a friend who works there. I asked, at what time should I go to the bank so that I can create my account quick, fast, and I go out. And then he mentioned you can actually do it using the app. I was like, can you? Then I checked the app. I created, I think, less than an hour. I had my account. And from someone who was in the bank from the 90s, for instance, if you actually show them the value you've done there, and they don't want to side with you to solve actually more problems, they don't like you, because what else can you do from there? But so you bring them on board with how deliver, showing the value you've brought, and little by little they get onboarded on what you're doing, and they feel free to share actually more of their problems, brainstorm on the solutions, give you edge cases they have faced in the past, and now the language gets better, the communication gets better with time.
I thank you everyone for your questions. I hope there is no burning question. All right, doesn't look like there is. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a few last questions, but I would like you to tell us, you've told us what you've learned along the way. Thank you, Eve, for your very good question. I was planning on asking that. Thank you for asking it. Made my job easier. So, but you told us what you learned, what you had to do to go from wherever you started to where you are right now. But in the learning, there's always an unlearning. So what did you have to let go? What did you have to be like, okay, this does not serve me from stage A to B? What did you have to unlearn to, for example, for Jean-Luc, as somebody who has been a software engineer, you've held all positions in the life cycle of a product, and now you are building a company that has ownership at its core. There is something about process that you had to unlearn somewhere. There is somewhere at some point to be where you are right now. There is something that served you at a lower point or an ancient point that no longer serves you, that you had to unlearn. And that can be difficult because when a process works, you're like, why leave it? So yeah, that's the question.
That's a very hard question to answer. But I believe there are a lot of things that I personally unlearn over time. One thing that that came on my mind is because I used to, when I was in, like, let's say high school and primary, O level and all of that, I'm not sure if I would call it to be lucky. I was lucky to be among the top performers. So I think I developed a wrong sort of like false thought that I know everything. But the moment I decided to step in that adventure of working with my colleagues to start a company, I was so disappointed to know that I know almost nothing. Actually, there is a lot to learn still, but second of all, none of us can be as smart as all of us. So we definitely need each other. So I had to develop the hard way the art of listening, the art of giving people the time and opportunity to speak of their opinions. And I assure you that if I would calculate it, like 80% or even almost 90% of the good decisions that I've ever made were coming from the opinions of my team members, and they were like almost 5 times better than what I was thinking at the beginning before opening up for a discussion. I would find myself even in a scenario where I was trying to solve something for myself, and I'm spending 2, 3, almost 4 weeks trying to find a solution, and the moment I speak to someone, all of a sudden in an hour, here is a solution, and here is here is the best way to go about it. So I had to unlearn the fact that going as an individual, it's very hard and you can rarely make it, but working as a team is the best way to go about it. Thank you.
If I go next, I think I have a similar story with Jean-Luc. So I was kind of smart in my education, so that made me think I knew everything as well. And the challenge I faced when I stepped into the product role was taking feedback, because as you know, the humankind is shaped, they don't like to give good feedback. So it's faster, easier to give bad feedback. So you have to learn how to take feedback and not take it personal, but take it as a stepping stone to improve something you've worked on. And the moment you learn this, it will help you with your daily life, basically, because no one will mess up your day because they told you your app is not doing anything it wanted to do at 8 in the morning before you even wake up. Because you know it's their nature, and then pushes you to ask what issue they faced, and then solve that in the future in the version 2 or in the next shipment you're doing. So taking feedback is the first thing, and the second thing I learned is not working in silos, collaborating. So as I said, engineers like to work at home, closed with headsets, write the code, and then ship and leave. But as you step into product, you need to spend more of your time hearing from users, getting feedback, learning from them, discussing, catching the next problem they are facing so that you can know the direction of your product. So it pushes you to go out of your zone and then talk to people. And that's something I had to learn to learn. You mentioned something I had to unlearn, right? I mentioned that I was a top student. That led me to being a perfectionist. So in product, if you are a perfectionist, you wait for your product to be perfect, then ship it. You may take 2 years and the need is no longer there. So it pushed me to not be a perfectionist per se, then try to push faster and then get feedback faster. And that's something essential, because if you take time in development, as I said, some things get lost.
I don't want to repeat what I said. I'll just maybe add one thing that for me I had to unlearn, is that you are a product owner, but the product doesn't own you. Meaning, because when the product owns you, like he said, taking feedback is going to be hard. So you have to step outside of, yes, you're a product owner, but you're also a user. So I had to unlearn that whatever that the feedback is, or whatever that how the product is received on the market, has nothing to do with me as a person. Because when you dwell so much on that, because to be honest, product owner can also be demonic. You can be, yes, I said let's be end user obsessed, but not the specific product obsessed. Because when you're so much obsessed with the product that you are product owner for, taking feedback will be hard, improving will be hard, enhancements will be hard, because you think you have landed, you were there. But the moment you unlearn that, yes, you're a product owner, but the product doesn't own you, you can actually say, yes, we've built this 2 years ago, but to be honest, where we sit today, this is no longer relevant, or it's no longer solving any problem. So yeah, I had to unlearn that.
Thank you very much for those answers, very insightful. All right, I have one final question, a more reflective in terms of your experience for each one of you. I'm going to start with Jean-Luc. So you are a CEO, and for that, you sit at the table, at that table that creates the specs that goes to the engineers, and then they're like, what is this, right? So how would you say, and make this more of a closing remark, how would you say the engineering team, the product team, comes to business? How do they explain their process and their need to business in a way that speaks their language? Because we've talked about how it's very important that we embed ownership in the engineers whenever applicable, that we understand stakeholder management. We've made that clear. But then how do we specifically inform the business, like speak their language? So we are talking 1-0, they are talking English. How do we talk English and let them understand the 1-0s?
That's a very good question, and I'm very, very glad that you asked it. And to all engineers here, because I've been an engineer as well for, I was going to say for a very, very long time, but it's a little bit in there. But most of us tend to, of course, we love the process of developing the product, but sometimes we are all lost there, that we miss up some sort of like soft skills. Like you cannot express yourself. Like it's very hard. You have something in mind, but you can't find the way to put it out. Me, myself, I'm just going to give it as an example. It kind of worked for me. It can work for you. I actually attended a club for like 4 years. That's called Toastmasters. It's for teaching people for public speaking, networking, that component of communication. Because I don't think I would find any other like blue or red pill that do this and puff, you're gonna be a good communicator, other than actually practicing it and going outside your box, the box that you've self-imposed. And I believe that without any exception, any person that would invest in their communication skills, you will always find returns. And I promise you, they're always going to be somewhere up than 3 times the returns that you're getting, 5 times, and somewhere even beyond 10 times what you're expecting to get at. So work on your communication skills.
Thank you very much. So Chanel, I'm going to ask you, as somebody who has held different positions on the food chain of a product, how would you say, to solve this gap, how do we create space in the process that allows the gap to be filled without having to the back and forth that goes on when they have delivered something, but they missed this spec, they missed that. But how do we create a process that fills the gap subconsciously, if I may say?
Actually, let's actually not create a process, because when people create process, people tend to go by, I have followed the process. Actually, I would say we should just simply say, let's create co-ownership, let's create collaboration and relationship that is so close that we don't necessarily follow a process. We actually, whenever there is something to be done, we actually sit together, brainstorm, come up with ideas, move forward, at some point say, no, this is not what we want, come back, because a process actually is what landed us here. We have a process. Write requirements, speak to stakeholders, dump it somewhere, user stories, acceptance criteria, someone built something, tested, goes live, nothing. Actually, let's not have okay, having a process is good, but let's not be obsessed with the process itself. Let's actually be intentional about saying whatever we're doing, at the end of the day, if there is something, and this doesn't, I'm not only speaking to product owners, I'm talking even about engineers. Even to a point where, even in your own code, if you have done something, you say, to be honest, this will not get us anywhere, it's okay. Even a QA saying, yes, I'm testing this, but to be honest, even as a tester, I don't see this. So the process itself, we tend to follow it, and we tend to end up with nothing, because we're trying to follow a process. Yes, having a process, like I said, is good, because again, organization should have structure and order. But when you're so much obsessed with the process, you actually tend to, yes, follow the process, but with nothing. But like I said, let's actually be problem-solving oriented, as opposed to having a specific and say process one goes to point A, B, C, D. No, I don't believe that will solve the problem.
Thank you very much, Annette. All right, so my last question. So we have here in the audience, we have seasoned engineers, we have upcoming engineers, we have upcoming product owners, we have the whole food chain from the beginning. So Londra, this is to you. You've taught engineers, and you've seen how the education of engineers works. So my question is, how would the education system, the learning of the teaching of these engineers be altered, or what would we change to ensure that engineers get out of school knowing that to deal with product owners and business, there is something I have to have beyond knowing how to code?
Thank you very much. I think that particular thing you're talking about, Jean-Luc mentioned it, it's soft skills. Because, as I said at the start, engineers are very smart. When you give them something, if it's challenging, it will take longer, but at the end of the day, they know they deliver it. They'll ship it. With the advancement in AI, now it's even easier to deliver something. So we know they can deliver. They know they can deliver something, but that key missing part, and that should be focused on from the start, is the soft skills, the communication skills, the stakeholder management, engaging with people. Show them the value from the start of the development, not just coding 8 hours a day, but have some space to practice soft skills, especially communication. I think that's one of the key investments that can be done.
All right, thank you very much. All right, I'd like to thank all of you. Thank you, Chanel. Thank you, Landelin. Thank you, Sauvé. Thank you very much for this insightful conversation. We've learned that to solve the gap of things getting lost from requirement to delivery, we have to understand ownership. Engineers need to learn how to communicate, and we also need to embed stakeholder management in everything that we do. I believe that that's and what we can take home. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. Thank you, Brian, for creating this space for us to learn about these things.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you for sticking up until the end. But this is not the best part yet. The best part is yet to come. So I think we've learned a thing or two about today's topic. First of all, we now know that engineers lie. So that's one thing. Another thing, we've heard that product is a collaboration of politics, business, and engineering. But honestly, there will be a translation will be lost somehow, somewhere. But what matters is how teams comes up, builds up together, take that ownership the panel has been talking about, and they will end up creating or developing great products that our customers are going to use. So, give it up one more time for our panelists. They have really done amazing job. Yes, thank you. And please give it up to the Blackso team who have really done a great job organizing these events throughout the entire week, and we've had it today. Please give it up to them, everyone at Blackso Hub. So, to give a little bit about Blackso Hub, so it's a co-working space that focuses entirely on tech, and that's why nights like this exist. So is to have different teams from different institutions come up and talk about the problems we face each and every day and find a way we can have a solution and work around those problems. So now the next session we're going to connect and have some snacks, drinks over there. Please feel free to reach out. We have very, very big, important people here today. I don't want to mention names, but there are a lot of big titles in the audience. Feel free to reach to each and everyone, introduce yourself, ask them what they do, and try to connect. So, this is not the end of our Tech Talks, where there are more to come. So we would like to have you again joining us and be part of the solutions. Thank you to everyone. Have a great night, and let's connect together. Thank you.